Hey, I actually got to see an early screening of Shazam. And I know the first question you're asking yourself, who the hell are you? Well, I'm Ray. How you doing? But I know the second question you're asking yourself, is it any good? Oh, wow, it's actually really good. Now, I have to figure out how to say all this without giving away anything about something that's based on material that's been around since like the 1940s. Let's see. Shazam, Captain Marvel, has always been kind of a side hero for me. You know, the guy that just happened to be in the comic or the cartoon I was watching. So if you're a die-hard Shazam or Captain Marvel fan, I hope you can still find this video at least a little bit helpful, even though you probably know a lot more about the source material than I do. So anyway, Shazam! By DC Entertainment and Warner Brothers Studios, and executively produced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Obviously, I do not own any of this footage or any of these images, so I'm gonna make this, and I'm gonna put it here for the duration of the video. So DC and Warner Brothers, please don't pull my video or, like, sue me. You won't get much. And Rock, please don't lay the smackdown on me or whatever. I really only have good things to say. Well, mostly. The story centers around Billy Batson. I know, right? Big surprise. Played by Asher Angel, who actually does a really good job. He captures both the impulsive recklessness and that underlying humbleness of Billy Batson pretty well. Just to forewarn you, the beginning can come across as a little awkward in tone, giving off almost like a Disney Channel original movie vibe. But later you kind of realize that this is kind of done on purpose. I think it's done to contrast the whole reality of Billy Batson's situation. Growing up as an orphan and having to look out for himself. And I think part of his coping mechanism is being able to mentally edit this memory to be a lot more pleasant than it may have actually been. The movie actually does pick up quite a bit once you get introduced to Billy's new adoptive parents and their household. These are two people who had a rough time growing up and really want to help these young kids out and make things a little bit easier for them. They approach raising these kids kind of like with a laissez-faire attitude, because they know how important it is for these kids not only to be guided, but to really figure out and rationalize these things on their own as well. At least that's the vibe I got. Even if at times they're a little bit too hands-off, and they kind of let Billy run away and do whatever he wants and not kind of actively search for him. Once again, this is fine for this movie. It also kind of explains why Billy's able to duck out so often and kind of Shazam it up. Each one of the orphans is great. They all have their own little quirk, one being very quiet, one being full of energy and a bit clingy, one having a fear of moving on, one being a little obsessive, and then one being obsessed with video games, and being that kid from Fresh Off the Boat. The movie does follow that expected trope, the one where the kid who spent most of his life looking out for himself ends up growing close to a bunch of people that really show that they care about him. Then he figures out what really matters in life, thus making him grow as an individual and accepting his responsibility. The hell, what's wrong with that? Now, the movie absolutely shines when Billy gets his powers. When Zachary Levi dons that giant muscle suit and cape, it's pretty awesome. Watching him thump around and getting used to being like 3 to 4 times his original size is pretty damn funny. Throughout the movie, I didn't really see a grown man pretending to have the mind of a 14-year-old kid. I actually saw Billy Batson, a 14-year-old boy in a man's body, going through like super puberty. Wait, can that be like misconstrued? Can I say that? Now, this all gives rise to Billy and Freddie Freeman's relationship, one of the best parts of the movie. Just imagine being a 14-year-old kid and your best friend just happens to get superpowers one day. The two having almost no idea what powers Billy has, perform all these experiments and document them all on this thing called YouTubes. Levi and Grazer demonstrate such a ridiculous amount of comedic chemistry with each other. Bickering back and forth and pranking each other every chance they get. It instantly brought me back to a time in my life when punching someone in the arm an equal amount of times as their age was as funny as it was a tradition. After all, ball busting is what every good relationship is based on. I really like how they portrayed Billy in his superhero form. Even though, his heart's in the right place, he's still incredibly clumsy, and he is a complete stranger to superhero etiquette. Dr. Thaddeus Sivana, the villain. I can't really say this any other way. He's pretty generic. He's an evil scientist, complete with, some form of an ocular deficiency. But this actually is not a bad thing. Once again, this works for this movie. What's a better lesson in Superhero 101 than a supervillain that's a mad scientist who has an eyeball possessed by sin ghost monsters? Maybe it's a little bit more complicated than I thought. It was still great. I don't want to give too much away, though in the movie there were times and parts that kind of bordered on campy. The movie embraces that and makes it its own, at times even poking fun at itself. The Sins design, holy crap. They were as disgusting as they were awesome. And this worked to counteract the youthful playfulness the movie had throughout the beginning. And they were in some surprisingly violent scenes. I mean, you gotta eat, right? You get it, right? They ate people, and they showed it. Sans blood, of course. Still, it was fairly jarring and gave you a feeling of, holy shit, Batson better man up. The movie mostly used a nice bright color palette with slightly oversaturated reds, which was great, especially compared to Batman vs. Superman, and everything was dark blue and gray. And then when the Sins or Dr. Sivana had a scene, the palette would kind of desaturate a little bit and darken, completely changing the mood of the film. I like subtle things like that. Costume-wise, Dr. Sivana basically just wore a trench coat, nothing crazy. In the comic, I think he just wore a lab coat. That's perfectly fine. Captain Marvel, or whatever they want to call him in this movie, Mr. Shazam, Super Billy? Damn it, Marvel. Anyway, the costume. This is by far the best design I've seen in the DC Cinematic Universe. The costume, though modernized with a glowing lightning bolt effect and textured material, still holds true to its original design. I'm also really happy it doesn't look like obnoxious armor. I'm really sick of that overly armored Batman-esque costume style. They're so segmented and crappy, they're just unnatural and stiff. Like the Justice League Batman. Not the Batman vs. Superman costume. I actually like that one, except for the ugly bat symbol. Overall, this movie's good, and opinions being the subjective little creatures they are. I don't expect everyone will feel the same way, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is by far, in my opinion, the best movie out of DC and WB in a long time. Giving you the thrill and excitement of something new while still paying homage and respect to an established history. It was fun, colorful, and it was actually pretty easy to escape into. And I really want to dive into the lore even more now that I've seen it. Dude, it's big with superpowers. Sign me up. Twice. And a third time too if it's not completely forced or contrived. Cough, cough. And I made this video fairly quickly, and I just want people to know this movie was good. Especially before it got buried in Avengers Endgame ticket sales. Who knows if anyone will even watch this video, but if by chance you click this and you've gotten to this point in the video, don't ignore this movie. Encourage DC to make more movies like this by actually seeing it. This is the formula that I personally fell in love with as a kid, watching the Donner Superman films. Just heroes just being heroic, even if it is a little campy. No need to snap any necks. And stay after the credits. I mean, come on, it's 2019 and it's a superhero movie. Why the hell wouldn't you stay after the credits? No spoilers. Thank you for watching my video. Hopefully that helped you a little bit in case you were kind of on the fence about seeing this movie or not. I know it's a DC movie, but seriously, see it. I really tried to get this video up sooner, but I had to really scrounge my video editing assets to kind of make a video that I didn't quite plan on making. But if you enjoyed it or thought it was relatively okay and you're willing to throw out maybe a like or a subscription, throw one my way. That'd be real cool. I would appreciate that a lot. And if you're still bored, why don't you check out one of my other videos? Thank you to whoever is watching this.